Welcome back to South Philly Sauce, an Audacy original brought to you by 94 WIP and Jack Daniels. Ashlyn and Al back here with you on a Friday morning, working late last night. Well, not too late because overtime didn't last that long. The Flyers, they've lost 2 straight, giving up 4 goals in each of those games. Lost to the Devils last night on Thursday, and there's so much to unpack in that game, Al. So we're gonna recap. We're gonna look forward. We have a player interview with Tyson Foerster, who's become so prominent with the Flyers. But I left work last night encouraged because it seemed like that game was going to be a blowout. It seemed like it wasn't going to go well. And I was encouraged more so about the matchup. This Devils-Flyers game showed me this is a matchup that we're going to look forward to now, probably for years to come because of the stars on both teams.
Yeah, well, I mean, the Devils matchup with the Flyers, they've been annoying for a while.
Yeah.
and it cost the Flyers dearly in playoff situations. And they have such great young stars now, the Hughes brothers, prominently. But I was encouraged. It was an odd game because it started out like, oh, well, here we go again with the Devils, and they're going to run you out of your own building. But I like the fact that the Flyers come back from adversity now against teams that have beaten them, and within games now, even though they lost to the Rangers and the Devils, in each game it looked like, wow, this is going to be a rout early, and they managed to come back in them. So that's a really, really good sign.
It is, and that's when we talk about, and I know we're beating this drum so much this season, but that is the difference of this year to last year. Is last year when they got behind in these games, there was no coming back. And we basically could write our post-game show knowing what was going to happen, where this year you have very few clunkers along the way. I mean, I had friends at that game last night and they said it was one of the most exciting hockey games they've ever watched, to force overtime and have it come back and the crowd get into it. Granted, and you see the difference in the two teams is the Devils have the Hughes brothers and the Flyers don't. And you predicted it. We all predicted it. When you saw that happening in overtime, you're like, all right, they're going to lose because that's the difference in these teams right now.
They can't go to overtime it turns into the Hughes family picnic if it's overtime. It's just the three, the two Hughes brothers get on the ice, and with Hischier there. And it was, it's triply annoying because Hischier's the guy that the Devils took just in front of Nolan Patrick. It was just, it was a recipe for just remembering some bad things that have gone on. But I mean, the effort level is always there. The goaltend, the Hart was remarkable in the game. So I mean, that's another good sign that it's come along. So I mean, where each franchise is right now, and their time is now. I mean, that's why they went on and got a Timo Meier last year. That's why they're probably going to be in the market for a goaltender this year, I believe, because it's they don't have the strongest goaltending. Although Schmid played very well last night, but they may be in the market for that because their window's pretty open right now, and it's pretty wide. So the Flyers going to have to deal with this for a while. But the fact that they went toe to toe with the Rangers and then the Devils, making mistakes, is pretty encouraging.
It is, and that's where you're encouraged, because I was encouraged yesterday when John Tortorella in his morning skate press conference talked about Michkov finally and talked about the Mad Russian coming here. And when he comes here and the Flyers get their draft picks, then it's the time for them to spend the money on the free agents. It's what the Flyers can be in 2 years. And you got to think about, okay, well, if they can go toe-to-toe right now with the Devils and the Rangers, with where the team stands right now, imagine what that looks like when Michkov's here and when the free agents are here. And I know that's false hope and it's too much optimism. I get it. It's great. We're talking about the future again. But look how close you are already.
Yeah, it's really ironic. When we started this podcast, one of the names we considered was waiting for Michkov. And then we decided, oh, we can't put it all on one name here. But I mean, really, when you hear a coach talk about, that's pretty rare to me, that coach is all about now, keep my job. Mm-hmm. But Tortorella's in a different spot. It's his last go-around, last rodeo, I think, as far as head coach. But he also, I like the fact that he does. In the morning, he's talking about getting ready for 2 years from now. At night, he's benching a player early because you got to win this game right now, and you have to send messages. So I think I think he's trying to do culture and win all and future all at the same time. He's on 3 rails, which
Yeah.
is dangerous, but he seems to be navigating it fairly well. So I give him credit for buying it. He's part of the group going forward, but he's also the guy that wants to win every single game, every single night.
Yeah, and I don't blame him for having to balance that. And thought it was refreshing because we've never really heard Torts talk about Michkov, but that's what the entire fan base is talking about. That's every hockey fan in Philadelphia talking about. So I think it's more of the honest approach, which is what we're getting with Keith Jones and Danny Briere, and for Torts to finally say, like, yeah, like the Flyers are going to be pretty good when this guy gets here. Like, it was like, finally, like, we're stating the obvious here.
Yeah, and he gave him the name the Mad Russian, which I'd never heard. Maybe just I never heard it.
Maybe
But
it's 6.
he called him the Mad Russian. So he's got some personality, the kids, when he comes over, and so does the kid at BC, Goche, and Rizzo out in at University of Denver, and Barkey, and Bonk. So there's a lot of names. So most encouraging, a lot of names that fans are already familiar with before they even get here. Right. But in the meantime, they've got a team that just won't surrender anything. They want to hang in with it, and this was a big stretch. Getting even 1 point when you look at this stretch of games against Metro teams and 2 coming up against Pittsburgh. This was a stretch where you were in danger of, if everything goes bad, it's a landslide against you.
Yeah.
So even though they don't, it's not an avalanche against them, they're not buried under points against them in the Metro.
Yeah, you're staying afloat at this point, which you hope you get more points in the stretch. And who knows, they could play well against the Penguins and make yourself feel better about this Metro stretch. But it seems right now the Metro is so bunched up. And Torts was talking about at practice this week how he likes that, how he thinks it's good for hockey that you have all these teams that make it more interesting. People are watching what's going to happen with this Metro division. I think when you see a game against Carolina, when you see a game against the Devils, all right, it's not as bunched up as you thought because these teams are just a couple steps ahead of the Flyers. And it seems like by the end of the year, it's going to shake out the way it's supposed to.
It could. There's always injuries that come in. Goaltending goes south for a team. The Devils really, 5-on-5, they haven't been that good. Their power play has been tremendous. And, of course, the individual skills that they have are remarkable. But they're not that much better. And in hockey is a sport where if you just play what the Flyers run into is they have to play hard every single night. And it sounds like fans will say, what's so hard about that? You're getting paid $1 million, $2 million, $3 million, $4 million. So it's not that easy to play that. It's really grueling to play that kind of hockey shift after shift after shift. And the coach knows it. And he has to make that a demand that we can't take a shift off. The Rangers can cruise for 10 minutes in a period and boom, Zibanejad. The Devils, boom, 2 guys. But the Flyers, that's not the case.
They have no boom.
No, they don't. Konechny was close to it, but they just don't have it. They have to. They're the little engine that could, but they have to just keep motoring.
Yeah, and I was down ringside with Scott last night for our 3rd period hit, and sadly, which I know it's the case vice versa with Devils games as well. I've heard for a Devils home game against the Flyers, there's a ton of Flyer fans as well at those games, but there was a ton of Devils fans at that game last night, and you looked around and every single Devils fan had a Hughes jersey on. And Scott was telling me, he's like, this is what the Flyers don't have right now, is they don't have a prospect, a guy where it's just obvious everyone is going to have their last name on the back of their shirt. You see Konechny's, you see a lot of Hartnells still, but you don't have that unanimous, I'm going to go buy his jersey type of guy.
No, they have the goalie Hart. There's a lot of those. Konechny, obviously, but Hughes is. Well, I don't even know which Hughes jersey. They've got the 2 Hughes, and then I haven't put the first initials on. It's Hughes. Yeah. But he's very good for the league. He was on the Eli Manning podcast, and he does a lot of stuff. He's a cool guy. The whole family's pretty, and they're media savvy. They're fun.
They're fun. They took his jersey last night. I was like, "There's a guy, you hate that, but man, that's cool. That's fun. Young people resonate with that."
Yeah, they're fun. They're fun players, and Konechny's a fun player, and
Yes.
Forster's a fun player. There's good guys, and when you have talent and that, well, there's the combination you want. If you have fun and you have no talent, you're basically a clown. But when you have talent like that, it's a whole different story. It's almost like the Eagles. Kelsey, they're fun, but they're really, really good. So it makes a big difference. And I think that the Hughes family, especially Jack, is really good for the league. And it's also good for the Flyers. I don't know, you might be annoying. You see some Rangers jerseys or Devils jerseys, but you go up there, as you mentioned, there's Flyers jerseys everywhere. It's good to have rivalries like this. That's why I don't mind the teams packed together like that with a chance. And every time they come in, no matter where they are in the standings, it's like, this is a rivalry game. I love rivalry games. The Flyers going to have it with the Devils outdoors coming up. And the fact that you have Hughes for maybe a generation of fans, Crosby's not going to be around forever. So it's good to have somebody else that you can be annoyed with. That's a terrific thing. And it'd be terrific if the Flyers, if everybody hates Konechny when he goes up to Jersey and they start howling at him, or when the Mad Russian comes over, they start howling at him. So I mean, I think that's terrific. I love the rivalry games, which is why, although they struggle, the Rangers came in right after Thanksgiving, now the Devils. I think the fact that you're so close with them and the games have come down to the wire with them, I think it's great.
It is great. And I have a feeling in that outdoor game, one guy the Devils are not going to like too much. And really, most teams now in hockey are not going to like a lot. And for nothing against him is Garnet Hathaway. I mean, Flyers fans love this guy. His teammates, they love him because he is the spark plug. He is the guy getting in all the action, sticking up for his teammates. And when they need a fight, he delivers a fight. Last night, it was something. He boards Luke Hughes, gets a game misconduct call out of the game. Torts goes nuts. We heard Cam York post-game in the locker room saying it was the worst call ever. And it kind of was, Al.
Yeah, it was. You don't like to pick apart. I mean, it's, the cliches, it's a tough job. It is, but I think they missed they called an icing too late. Hathaway doesn't hear it. I do think Luke Hughes might have assumed the icing and heard it maybe just as he was getting launched into, but Hathaway just plays to the whistle. I think that was an official's fault. And I also think the fact that I thought Hughes was injured and he came back and I think that might have played maybe into it when they looked at it, but he came back. So I think that was a blown call. Hathaway's not that kind of a guy. He hears a whistle, he's going to stop. Yeah. But you play to the whistle. I don't understand that. I don't understand how that happens. People make mistakes. Players make mistakes. Officials make mistakes. But I think that was unfair to both players, Hathaway, and to a player that could have got hurt on the play and really was hurt for at least temporarily. It gets run into. So I think they put two players in bad spots by not having that icing called earlier. And Hathaway, you mentioned, they put him in. Last week, I jokingly said, put him in front of the net on a power play, and they did, because he just annoys so many people. Yeah. And when you get, when you're hoping he can draw a penalty time to time, but he's not afraid of anything. And he's also a guy, this is a sport. When you come back to a bench like that and you've taken a hit for your team or whatever, you play harder. And that's kind of what he's brought to this team. Anybody that wants to take a shift off or something, well, you see that guy go out there for whatever ice time he gets. Say, well, I can't. He's literally putting his face on in the line of fire every night. I can't do it.
Yeah, he's been impressive. And there's been a lot of guys that have been impressive. One of them, Tyson Foerster, coming up big last night. And Al, you caught up with him earlier this week at practice. So let's hear what he had to say.
Oh, cool. Oh, yeah? Yeah. All right. Pretty sweet. So that's obviously your first shootout. But what was it like? When did you know you were going to take the shot? Yeah.
Well, Torch just said after Frosty, just be ready just in case for a shooter. So I was like, all right, I'll be ready. And then ended up I got to go. And, I told a couple people already that Hartsey was.
Yeah.
I practiced out on Hartsey in practice a little bit. And I went down the bench and I was like, Hartsey, should I do it? And he's like, yeah. So, and I ended up doing it and it worked. And yeah.
Did you study goalie before or anything? You guys?
Me and Hartsey just fool around after practice. I usually take like 5 breakaways on him after practice, and he's a pretty sick goalie, and so I mean, if I can score on him with that move, I mean, I feel like I could score on anyone.
Is it exciting doing it though? Like, it's gotta be cool.
Yeah, it was great. Obviously, winning the game was awesome, and after that game too, 0-0 for so long, it was great to finally score one.
Yeah, well, you've been in the lineup, I mean, doing other things. So I guess that, do you like the fact you get a lot of credit for, you got a shot, but you're getting a lot of pluses for just being good all over the ice?
Yeah. I mean, I would like to score, but hopefully it's coming, and I feel like I've been playing good in other areas, and I feel like our line's been playing great, and hopefully we can continue that.
And what's it been like just being a part, the whole quarter of a season gone now? Feel real comfortable?
Yeah, it's great here. I love the guys. Everyone's super nice, and I think those trips early on away kind of helped everyone in a hotel. We were all together for so long there, and I think we're really close, and we're like a family here.
What was it like? Like I watched on TV. We didn't do the game last night. Having the kid on the bench. What?
Oh, that was so cool.
Was it?
I mean, yeah, it was just. It's really sad, but that was probably he's gonna look at that every day for the rest of his life, and it's awesome to see.
You got a sense what it's like now to be a pro athlete, that it's more than winning's most important and everything, but just what you mean to kids and everything?
Yeah, for sure. I remember being a little kid, reaching over and giving high fives to the guys going out, and so every time I see hands, I always try and give them a tap and just try and make their day.
Cool.
So there's been so much talk of Tyson Foerster. Why is he still in the lineup? He's not scoring any goals. Why aren't you giving someone else a chance? Well, we see last night he delivers now in a couple games this season in the most clutch way. He scores the goal to send the team into overtime in a Scott Lawton pass, and he's just doing the right things. He doesn't make dumb mistakes. He's where he's supposed to be, and that is why he is playing so much.
Yeah, and in that, he was talking about his shootout goal against the Islanders coming in, and just the fact that coach gives him that opportunity. And he went and he checked with the goaltender on how he's supposed to take this shootout goal. And even though I tried to pump him up a little bit about even when you're not scoring, you're doing the right things, but he was pretty quick to say, yeah, but he likes to score goals.
Yeah,
and I really think the team needs that. You get a lot on effort. But skill, when you have to put it together, they have a lot of guys that work hard. You don't want to be a laundromat where all the washing machines are working and it's not interesting to watch them, but they're all working. So
yeah.
you got to have a lot of guys that can really finish, and he can finish. And that tip that he made in that goal that sent it into overtime was terrific. Being in the right spot. And I like the fact on the power play, he was on a wall and he kind of moved to I think his spot is more toward the middle of the ice when he comes in and takes that shot. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I really think it's great that he does enough things right, and they don't have to teach him some defensive stuff, that he can stay in alignment. He's not, the upside is he's not going to hurt you if he gets in a cold spell, which he was early in terms of scoring goal. But the really important thing is he hasn't lost sight of the fact that I'm a different player. I can be at another level because I can score goals. And even though everybody's been pumping his tires because I'm in the right spot, I do this, I can do that, he doesn't lose sight of the fact, but I need to score.
Yeah.
And he's got that knack, and he's a real important element for the Flyers, who really struggle to score goals at times.
Yeah, and you see his excitement. That's our Jack Daniels salute, is that conversation with Tyson Foerster. When he scores the goal, he jumps 10 feet in the air. I mean, he has just this love of hockey you can see for a young guy that's succeeding. And the Flyers, they need him. And, I was talking to Morgan Frost in an interview in between intermissions, and I asked Morgan, you have yet to have a comeback win so far this season. Like, what needs to change? And he's like, we haven't. He was shocked by that stat that the Flyers have yet to come from behind and win a game. It's a concern at this point out, and they're getting closer. But now you go forward to 2 back-to-backs against the Penguins, and it's at the point where you hope they can right the ship, because if the opposing team scores first, it's like, right, there you go, like write the post-game show. Like, we don't know what's going to happen, but as of this season, they're going to lose.
Yeah, they haven't had the comeback win, but they've come back at times, which is, really just they didn't get the extra point in when you go in overtime or shootout or whatever. But they do come back. They don't lose everything. They don't lose their structure. at times. But that's where Foerster comes into play. That's where Frost, who took a couple of iffy penalties in that game, but scores a goal. And that's, he's there for that. I mean, this is a great chance for him. Again, I don't know how many times we've said another chance, but it's another chance for him. With the Penguins coming up, it's another chance for him. But let's just imagine, not forget about Gauthier and Mitch Cod. So let's imagine that Foerster and Frost step up their goal scoring, the difference that can make in a finishing a comeback or something. So although the eyes of the future is really nice, the nearer future is, those two guys could be huge difference makers. So everything's not on Konechny to finish a comeback. Everything's not on Sanheim to come flying up. Everything's not on Farabee to cheat and pinch on a play to try to create some offense.
Yeah, and Travis Konechny was right there last night. I mean, I thought he was going to win the game 4 times in the last 3 minutes of the game. And a guy that hasn't had a goal in a while, but that's coming. That's clicking soon.
Konechny, yeah, he's always right there in terms of effort to get in and in the middle of things. A lot of times, I guess when the Flyers don't have that many options, other players he's like a magnet and coverage. Yep. And the beauty of it is he can then send a pass over to somebody. That's why somebody on his line, that's why when you see great players, it's usually somebody with somebody. So if somebody goes cover, bring somebody over, there's an open man, he can send it over. And that would help. If Frost plays that way, Foerster plays that way, that would help Konechny so much.
For sure. And now you look to these 2 games this weekend. You have back-to-backs against the Penguins. You have Saturday in Pittsburgh, Monday in Philadelphia. And these are 2 teams right now really neck and neck when you look at their season. They have the same amount of wins. Penguins just beat the Lightning. But Penguins are I was just looking at their schedule and their season so far. It's loss, win, loss, win, loss, win. They had about a 4-game win streak earlier on in the season, but right now a little inconsistent, just like the Flyers. So it's really anyone's game this weekend.
Yeah, it's a team that paid a lot of money to their Hall of Fame veterans. Crosby doesn't look like he's slowed down much. He's still doing it. I mean, he's still one of the 3 best players in the league at this point. And it's always the emotion that comes with playing the Flyers. The goalie scored a goal, so they may be jacked up for that coming in. Yeah, and the Flyers will go in. I'm curious how they're going to go into this. It was fascinating to me that the coach decides to bench a player, Farabee, through basically the whole game. And he's always got the response that he's wanted the next game with what goes on. So I'm really curious to see, does this guy come out like shot out of a cannon, as they say, or is it just the defensive responsibilities? But I think the whole team, it's a dangerous thing to do. I was shocked because they were already missing a forward and they end up missing a player in Hathaway. So that's now you're down 2 forwards, but the team kind of bonded together in it. And every time this has happened, last year, Sanheim, every time this has happened, the response has been good.
Yeah.
So I'm curious to see the response this time. I'm assuming a really good response in terms of attention to the details of the game, how he's supposed to do something. I sometimes think Tortorella wants like a snappy response from a player, like an argument almost from a player to see what goes on, because he's playing, like we mentioned at the beginning of this, he's playing a short game and a long game.
Yeah.
So, what's the balance here? So maybe the balance was in the short game, we missed a player for this game for so long, but in the long run, maybe over the 2 games against Pittsburgh, he becomes a primary player.
Yeah, and we don't know what happened. I mean, all we were told post-game, and Farabee declined to comment, so we didn't get Farabee's side of the story, and all we were told in Torts' presser is he did not listen. So it seems like, and Scott, and you were talking about it on the post-game show last night, a defensive assignment that was missed, an error. Who knows what happened on the bench, but 56 seconds he played in 2 shifts the entire game. And you could have argued the Flyers needed him last night. Yeah,
it was a risky move. But they amazingly, they really bonded together after that. And I think the Hathaway hit helped too, because I think everybody kind of had his back on what happened there. So, I mean, we'll see what happens in this next game, but it's never boring. It's one thing you can say with the Flyers. There's a Tortorella, Ken Hitchcock and his day, Keenan. There's a creative tension all the time, and they've got it right now going on.
You are on the edge of your seat every night, good or bad. It's entertaining. That is definitely true. All right, Al Morganti, that is South Philly Sauce, brought to you by 94 WIP and Audacy Original, and also brought to you by Jack Daniels. We will see you next week and talk about these Pittsburgh Penguin games. Have a great weekend.